Hello, shot callers. Today we have a new concept, a new idea for our podcast. We are going to do a four-part series with two new female founders. We wanted to give you all an insight into what it takes to start a business. And perhaps you'll find that it's easier than you thought it was. Perhaps we will find some areas that were surprises and that were actually harder than we all thought. But the idea is to, again, give you access and insight and open the doors of this somewhat clouded, shrouded world of startups and entrepreneurs. So today we will be speaking with Archana and Antara from Body by Organics. And before we dive into their story, I want to read you guys a few little statistics around startups, women, and venture in the EU. Europe has the lowest early stage female founder involvement in entrepreneurship, Lithuania being the standout star. Malta has the lowest, and as I just said, Lithuania the highest in all of the EU member states. There was a study, most of these statistics are coming from a report done by the European Commission in 2018, Women in the Digital Age. Despite the scarce percentage of women in entrepreneurship, the research has actually shown that women outperformed their male counterparts by 63%. So there's actually not a lot of empirical evidence that they underperform. It doesn't match up. Startups by women, 100% female founders, only obtained 4.9% of global venture capital deals in 2006. In the UK, for example, male entrepreneurs are 86% more likely to obtain VC funds than women. During an experiment in which two entrepreneurial pitch videos with randomly assigned voices were watched, 68.3% of participants preferred to invest in ventures pitched by male voices, even though they pitched the exact same deal. The same formal level of education, it still means women are less likely to start a business. Less than 8% of investors and business angels in Europe are women. Only 7.4% of investors who've invested in one or more startups are women. And that's something that we're going to address a lot in this podcast, is we're going to encourage women. Of course, that goes with the disclaimer, women who have means to invest in other women businesses. And we're going to ask these ladies a little bit about their funding. We're not going to get into too much personal details, but we're going to ask them a little bit about whether they are just solely using their own funds or if they've got some friends and family involved. Let's see. Fear of failure is a big one. Women seem to be a lot more cautious about failing than men. And they're less likely to rely on banks for financial support. I have a pretty good insight into that. And I think that Wall Street has failed women, especially women entrepreneurs, as a group on this topic and made it seem quite scary, quite inaccessible to go and get help. The last thing that was important that this report showed was the access to information about how to start up a business. Women felt really excluded from that. They don't feel like they have the background or know where to find the information. Of course, we can all Google something, but unless you've sort of been invited into a conversation around startup and the startup scene, which most women unfortunately aren't, by accident or on purpose, we're just left out of these conversations, and that means your self-confidence comes down around all this. So for that reason and many more, I really thought it would be a great idea to do a four-part series with Archana and Tara around how they decided to first start their business, and we're going to grow with them a little bit. We're going to take some time and we're going to check in with them and find out how they're doing. Are they doing better than they expected? Was there a glitch somehow? What's COVID doing to this business. So that is the concept. I hope you'll enjoy it. We're going to keep the podcast hopefully to under 45 minutes. Maybe the first one goes a little bit longer, but in general, we're going to give you a nice quick snapshot into their business, hear from them. And yeah, without further ado, I want to welcome you both to the podcast and then give you the opportunity to just say a little bit about your background. Just tell us a little bit about yourselves, ladies.
Thanks, Shannon. This is Antara, and she was the one who actually started formulating the Body by Organic skincare about 18 months ago. She comes from a retail and manufacturing background in her previous job, and she left her job for her personal reasons and decided to become creative. And she's very, very innovative on what she's produced. She comes from an Indian background, so she's used a lot of the raw products from that part of the world and integrated them to make them user friendly and for people to actually benefit from the fact that they're organic, they're vegan, they're also cruelty free, and they're genderless. So I think it fits the criteria of the way we're moving in the world.
Oh wow, I love that, and we're gonna hit that topic alone a little bit down the road, in this conversation. But I think genderless is just spot on, just a spot on way to go forward.
Yes. She's Archana, and Archana has a lot of business that she already takes care of. She's a very, very good friend of mine, and today she has become a business partner for the products I had been formulating. She's the one who had taken this whole range to the next level. She has helped me to do all that. I just formulated, and the next level, I would say that it wouldn't have been possible without her. So yeah.
It's really interesting because it sounds like you have a very symbiotic relationship of, the yin and yang is there. It might not be so successful if you had two ultra creatives or two ultra, task oriented, goal oriented people. And it's sort of like fitting a puzzle pieces together, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think we work really well together because I think as women, we understand each other. We understand, that we have a family. We also have kids to look after. And at the same time, we want to do something to make it successful right from the beginning to the end. So we really do manage time well together and work with each other's personal lives as well.
It's really fascinating to me that you each introduced each other. I mean, that says a lot right there. So I love that. That was a beautiful sentiment. And I didn't know you were going to do that. So I love that. That was really nice. Would you say that understanding the skills and the strengths of the other helped you guys to decide a little bit quicker to go into business together?
I think yes. That is yes, I knew that Archana had certain business, and she deals with all this, all the businesses pretty well. And with me, although I had a background in manufacturing, I knew how the retail works because I had been working in that sector for quite a long time. But still, it was very difficult for me to take to the next level. I didn't know who to approach or how to go about it. So yes, I would say that was, for me, it worked.
I think it worked for both of us because although I'm a bit creative, I couldn't have done what Antara has done with the formulas. I think I've got chemistry in my blood, but so I can see that the formulas work.
Interesting.
But I can't see which product to use when.
Okay.
And also the patience of actually trying all the formulas. I think that's what I'm not good at. I just want a fix.
You want the result.
And a result. And Antara's like, no, let's try this, let's try that. And I'm like, oh my God, really? Another one?
I'm right there with you. I'm super patient. I'm in that exact same way. I'll be like, no, that's good. Let's go.
Yeah, it balances out.
Okay. So what was the moment that you really, I guess what you're saying is that Antara already started putting these products together. And then I guess you got to the point where you thought, I'd like to make a business out of this. Or did you decide that already, Antara? Did you already know you wanted to make a business, or were you just trying to find products that were that fit your skin? And we're going to have to eventually talk about the products, but just the concept. how'd that
Um,
come about?
uh, when I started formulating the product, it was definitely nothing to do with taking it to a business level or something. I started formulating the product because I left my, I left my job because I had to look after my son who was going into the high school,
Yeah.
and after having 16 years of experience or working life, so when you sit absolutely at home, it can be very daunting. So yes, and that's when I wanted to do something for myself. So I
Okay.
wanted to do it. That can be so small thing, but I still wanted to do it. And at that point, what happened is I had to go to Boots, to the normal pharmacies to buy my products and stuff. So at, there was an instance where I couldn't find my brand, and because I hail from India,
Yeah.
I had been looking after my skin since I don't even know when.
Yeah.
So because it's something you do it as a daily
It's
ritual
an
every.
investment in yourself, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, you do that since you're teenagers and stuff. So yes, so when I went to the shop and I couldn't find my product which I use, I came home pretty depressed, and then I started go with trying to source it online. And that is when what happened is I started getting a lot of links. Normally Google comes with a lot of links of DIY skincares and stuff. um it was at that point, it was just kind of, okay, I have time, let me just go through them. So I started reading those DIYs, and what it happened is there are a lot of products which people actually have advertised on the DIY links, which probably is not not, it doesn't even have a shelf life. You don't know exactly what kind of you know the raw materials they're using and stuff. So I started to I had an interest, to be honest. I had an interest which was there since a long time, but it was just for myself. So I started reading about it, and at
Went
that
down the
very,
rabbit hole, as we say.
yes, yes, I started reading about it, and more I read, I got I became a voracious reader, to be honest, about the skincare, the oils, which oil, the skins, the comedogenic, non. So many things you had to. I was kind of started reading one after the another, and at that very point also, I never thought I would kind of take this into a level where I want to make it as a business or anything. So I started making the products. I started sourcing the raw material and I started making them. But they were primarily for my skin.
Yeah.
So and then quite after 1 or 2 months, I started talking to my friends, and I just started telling them, this is what I'm doing. And then I started distributing it to my friends, and they started giving a good feedback, which, and that is the time when, and then the lockdown started.
Yeah.
It was in March. The lockdown started. I did speak around February. I spoke to Archana about it. So Archana was very interested, very keen. So she was very keen in knowing what exactly the products are, but we couldn't meet up because of the lockdown. So the first lockdown, I can't remember the date. It was 5th August, or
we met on 5th of August.
Yeah,
you know the Eat Out Help Out scheme.
So
No.
When it came.
Sorry.
After
That's not.
yes, so that's when we met up.
Yeah.
And then I gave her my samples, and then she's like, she actually used it because she also used to have acne issues and stuff, and she used it on herself as well as on her son.
Ah, okay.
And she loved it so much. At that point, she said that, what are you doing with the with the
what
whole
you gonna
thing?
do with that?
Yeah,
You gonna keep that for yourself or what?
Don't make use of all of it.
So
you can't do that.
yeah. So that's when she said that, what is the next, what do you want to do with that? And I was so stuck, and I didn't know what exactly I want to do something about it. I knew that at that point, but I didn't know how to go about it.
Yeah.
And then and then she kind of uh, came down to my house one day and just said, okay, tell me what exactly your plans, what's your vision. And she discussed, and then I think she was very happy with the product, and her son also kind of liked the product. They are into brands, most of the kids, and like the product. And yes, and that's how we started. And she said, okay, fine, let's do it.
Okay.
And that's how we kind of
So really the August kind of was the point where you said, well, let's turn this into a business.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think it was the fact that the products were amazing.
Okay.
I think
very important.
And I think I have always had skin issues, acne. I've suffered from adult acne as well. So I had it as a teenager, but I grew up in Kenya. So at that time, my mom would make me a natural product and crush everything up and put it on. But after I got married and I moved to the UK, I couldn't make the same products, and I didn't have the time because I was always working.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I wish my mom was here, or someone would just give me the product and I would just put it on. But even that wasn't the turning point. I think the turning point was actually my 14-year-old son, because he has acne. So he's not got brilliant skin, and he has now actually, but at that point. And when I showed it to him, he was a bit apprehensive because he was with us at dinner with Antara's son as well. And he goes to me, Mum, really, you think this is going to work? And I was like, well, there's no harm. And after 10 days of trying it, he goes, can I have some more? And I was like, wow. So from the branded products to all the chemical products to this was a big turning point. So like I said, when I said to Antara, what are you doing with these? Because they're so good, it's like hiding away a diamond.
Yes, exactly.
And not giving it to anyone. So I think that made it into the next step. But I think, Shannon, in all honesty, both Antara and I were really naive, say the least.
That can be an advantage.
Well, we've had lots of hurdles. So it was funny because we actually thought we could make the product at home like you were doing, put it in a tin and sell it. Yes. I mean, that was what we thought cosmetics were. And I can't tell you how wrong we were. I mean, it's absolute so different from what we thought and what we're doing now.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because I suppose what you're going to talk about is regulations around, things that go onto consumers, bodies and things like that. I actually, and I wish I had the statistics with me, but in America, I was shocked to hear that there's actually very little regulation about who can put what out there. So I'm curious to hear, and I guess, did you guys have to follow, probably at the time, EU regulations, right? I guess that's going to change a little bit, but maybe you just stick with the EU so that you can passport the products through. But anyway, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So basically with cosmetics, you have to go through a CPSR standard where you actually have to tell them what you've got in the products and whether they'll be approved and where you got the raw materials from, what percentages you have, how much shelf life you've got. And the funniest experiment we had to do was the freeze-thaw method, where you took the products and you had to freeze them overnight, thaw them 3 times over, and each time make sure the smell was fine, the consistency was fine. And I remember recording these things and sending them to Andrew, thinking, okay, day 1, day 2, day 3, and each product had to be done. But that was just the freeze thaw, which is what you have to then video.
Okay.
And then you send them the forms, which Antara did, and they're so complex. And it's like, what preservative are you using? Because obviously we're not going down the chemical route, so we're doing the natural and completely organic route.
Right.
So we had to find the right formulations and the right percentages to pass the tests.
Yes.
So that was our first hurdle. Luckily, they were really helpful with the lab, and they taught us what we can add and subtract. But the other turning point was also, luckily, through a friend of ours, we met up with the dermatologist in Birmingham.
Okay.
and took all our samples to him.
Oh, wow.
And I think we were really nervous because we were like, oh my God, he's the skin specialist, he's the hair specialist. I mean, what is he going to say?
Yeah.
He loved the look of the products and the feel, but obviously he didn't know the formulations at that time.
Right.
So him, with the help of his PhD dermatologist, actually looked at the products and the formulas and actually approved them, which I think was the biggest. I mean, we can't thank him enough, and his fellow colleague, we can't thank them enough, because they actually gave us the confidence that we can actually go ahead with this.
Wow, that's really that's very good idea. Can I just ask you, did this cost you quite a bit of money to do that?
We are really grateful that at the moment it hasn't.
It hasn't. Okay.
But
so okay, just curious.
Just a friend's friend.
A friend. Okay, so someone that's wonderful. And I think that's great. And I think that there are people willing to help, especially in kind of the friends and the family circles. Were you nervous to ask people for help? Because that's another thing I think women don't like to go and ask people for help. And the help could be, look, can you open in a door? I know you know this person over here. Can you get me a meeting there? Women are notoriously bad about this. In fact, I had a conversation with someone within the Indian community, a female entrepreneur, and she did not want to use a very well-known, very successful sort of business person to get any contacts. And I said, are you out of your flippin' mind? Call him, text him. The worst he can say is, you know what, sorry, that's just not, I'm not comfortable with that. But if you have a real friendship, that should be able to stand it. And I said, do not for a second. You've never asked this person for a favor. So it's not that you're, every week asking this person for a favor. I said, but this person could really make a big difference for your business. Call him, text him, and just be straight. And I mean, I spent about 25 minutes telling her to do that. So is this, do you think, a female thing? Could this be, what about the Indian culture? How does that come into this? I don't know. You tell me.
I in this regard, I would say I had that problem. And I still have that problem in approaching people and hearing the word no, because what happens is, especially Indian community, there are a lot of times they don't help you, or they don't open the doors. And when you're always very, you don't want to hear the word no.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound nice, even though you can be a very good friend or not.
Yes.
You just don't like to hear the word no.
Understandable.
And for me, it has been a problem. So that's where again Archana has helped, because she is like, no, we're gonna ask what will happen. She's like that. So I always have that problem. I can't ask. I know the one if they say no. So she used to be like, she's much more kind of, she's like, whatever it is, we will ask. If they say no, so be it.
Yeah.
I think I'm that kind of attitude that, like, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, I think a lot of people ask me for favors, and generally, if I can do it, I will.
Yeah.
And I expect that if I ask for a favor, if they really can't do it for a reason that I don't know, or they just can't do it, it's fine. Yes. But if I haven't asked, then I don't know what the answer would have been. So I'm quite a go-getter.
Good.
I will go and ask, and yes, you get rejected, and so be it, but you move past it.
Exactly.
And you go to the next person. But I think this whole world, it synchronizes with each other. You need help from people to actually get somewhere. And I think women especially, need to help each other to get somewhere. I think we understand that, and we want to get somewhere with each other's help. We can't do it alone.
I wish I had a bell I could ring right now. That's a very important point. I need to get myself a bell. It's a huge point. Huge point.
Yeah, and I think that is what really bonds us. So yes, I agree that it's hard to ask, and sometimes you think, am I doing the right thing? But I think that, beyond that, you have to ask. And then, like you said, if you get a no, you get a no, but you'll get a yes somewhere in life.
Exactly. I think one of the best experiences that I had, just as a person, but then you can add the female on top of that, was when I left university and I had prepared to go to university and everything. I mean, my whole life was planned to that point, but I didn't actually know what career I wanted to have. I generally just wanted to kind of be the boss of people. I was just like, I just think that's what I should do, you know, but I didn't have a particular career in mind. And I literally fell into a stockbroker trainee program. And I had no preconceived notions about this, no insight. And I was hired also quite just flippantly. They were like, yeah, sure, we'll give you a job. I mean, they were paying nothing. I got, just very little sort of training. And basically it was throw you in. And I got a stack of cards that were called Dun and Bradstreet cards. They had almost always a man's name on it. If he ran a business, was he the owner, was he the CEO, how much money they estimated he made, and how much the estimated net worth was, and if it was a business, it was a turnover of the company, and the phone number and the address. I mean, these cards were sold to my firm, and I would get up. I would have to be at the desk at 6 o'clock in the morning, West Coast time, for a sales meeting on the market, and then at 6:30 I had to be calling the U.S. East Coast, and I had to basically call these people up and say, my name is Shannon, and I work for all the little things you say to make your firm sound great. And next time we have a great stock recommendation, can we give you a call? And you can imagine how many people said no. But the thing that stuck with me was how many people actually said yes. It's like, oh my God, they're saying yes. And so you just, as a whatever I was, 22-year-old, that was a phenomenal thing to learn. And I almost wish we could have some sort of course like that for our children. In fact, maybe I should do a cold calling course for our kids, not for them to actually go out and cold call people, but to get over the fear of asking, can I call you about this idea? Can I approach you one day? So anyway, I think that's great. And that is something that we definitely want to emphasize. Anybody listening, whatever age you are, just tell people what you need, and ask them if they can help you. And I think we'll be surprised.
Yeah, some people can really surprise you, and some people can really let you down.
Yes, well, that's true. That's true. And I guess you have to be prepared for that as well.
Yeah.
So that is definitely part of this. And I think we can't assume that everybody's going to want to help or will be able to. So, okay. So you go out there, you get the dermatologist to sort of approve or qualify your product. And then what was the next step?
I think the next step was jars, right?
The jars, sourcing the jars.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think the jar sourcing was you just think you just need to buy a jar and voila, we've got one.
No.
I think both of us agreed that we wanted to go eco-friendly, recyclable, reusable.
Yeah.
Kids these days are taught about it from the age of nursery.
Absolutely.
I think people actually believe that it is better to go forward. So although Antara had been making the products, she'd just been making a mask and then just putting them into jars, but we didn't have a quantitative measure of how much we needed of the products, the raw materials, to put it into a 50-gram jar. Was it
50 gram?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she actually ordered one from Amazon. I think it was just to see and trial it out. And I think that day probably was the day we figured out that if it says 50 grams, it doesn't hold 50 grams, because we made the product, put it in the jar, and it wouldn't fill the product. So forget even trying to make it. I think we had problems on our electric scale.
Yes, we did have a lot of problems on the scales and stuff. Yeah.
Because you're measuring from like 0.01,
Yes.
Measurements, and so we got the 50 grams made of I think it was brightening gel at that time. Put it into the jar, and not the whole thing would fit in.
Yes.
And I think we were really baffled by the whole aspect of it. So
and it didn't fit. So your official 50 grams on the scale did not fit into the 50-gram jar from Amazon. Okay.
We had quite a bit of it left over. So we emptied it out, and we were like, are we doing something wrong? What's gone on?
Oh man.
And then I think we came up with the idea, let's empty it out, measure it, and put water in it, and
Yes.
measure it again.
Yeah.
And it only held 30 mLs of water. So we were like, okay, so we're not going mad. We're not mad yet. And then after that, we realized that you have to look at the inner content of how much it's fitted in rather than what it says on the jar.
Wow.
to figure it out. Because it has to be the inner content availability rather than what the jar will hold in the inside rather than just generally.
So if I go buy a little serum from, the drugstore or whatever, and it says 100 mils, is that 100 mils the whole bottle, not what's inside?
No, what's inside.
Oh, good,
But
because I was about to get really angry.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah. So you have to be really, when you're making or producing a cosmetic, you have to have the right jar to see what is available inside. So you've got to get the inner dimensions correct rather than the outer dimensions.
Okay. That sounds like really good information.
That. And we've got one of our jars here, which we're going to use.
Okay.
So it's glass. It's going to be either frosted or clear.
Okay.
And we're using either this top or a black plastic recyclable reusable top. But our main aim is that in the jar you'll have 50 mLs completely in there, right to the top.
Okay. Now, when you at the point you're sourcing jars, I guess, well, I won't guess. Did you know how many products you were going to launch and what kind of jars then you needed for those variety of products? No. Okay.
Actually, we made probably we formulated 12 or 13 products, but then initially we decided we are going to only launch 5.
Okay.
That was our initial kind of decision. We launched 5. We didn't even decide what jars, but we just decided on how many we would launch.
Okay.
Slowly and steadily, I think we decided, no, it's going to be more products we're going to launch. And then we had to decide on the jars, which jars we will fit in what.
Yes.
So yes, that came into, I think we decided that very recently, that what kind of jars we would be using for
And
those.
at what point did you start comparing the cost of the products you were making, recognizing that there would be economies of scale down the road, that the first few product productions that you have are going to be your most expensive, but at some point I guess you could see a viewpoint towards, if we produce X amount, this is kind of our financial costings. Were you throughout this process, or at what point were you looking at making sure you could be competitive?
So we've been looking at it, price-wise. We've been looking at it throughout, because we do know, obviously, with the MOQs, the more you order, the less the price.
MOQ, can you tell MOQ?
Minimum order
quantity. Okay.
Minimum order quantity. So with minimum order quantity, anywhere you go, whether it's the raw materials, whether it's the jars, whether it's the packaging, the more you order, the less costly it gets, especially if we're getting them embossed, which we are at the top, or whether you're getting them labeled, etc. But I think the decision we made is that we're a startup company. We don't have that much finance. And also we don't, obviously we would love it to sell and we'd love people to buy it, but we don't know at what pace they will buy it.
Right.
So we are initially going to launch 8 products, which are going to be fully formed, with another 2 products of muslin cloths and the actual bowls, which are organic, with our stamp on it for the mixing of the mask and the cleanser.
Oh, that's clever. Okay.
Yeah, because I think when you mix a mask or a cleanser in your normal bowls, they're not at the hygienic level of you've used something else with it.
Okay.
So this is probably the best way to make it work.
Okay, good to know.
So we're going to do that, but we have 3 more products which are ready, but probably not ready to launch because we haven't had them test. They're not fully tested yet, so they're going through the testing now.
Okay. Okay, so let's just touch, because it seems like a sensible time to talk about that. Your financing and your budgeting. Is it been sort of ad hoc, or did you sort of have an idea of, what you needed? When did you have that idea? And did you say, okay, we're 50-50 partners, or did you take a silent partner on, or did you go out and get friends and family? We don't have to talk about the actual amounts, but give us some idea about the conversations you had around that.
I think that was quite a topic we actually did right from the beginning.
Okay.
Because I think we both believe that if you're going to have a business together, you need to be at the right pace rather than deciding, a year down the line what you want.
Yes.
I think our families were really supportive.
Okay.
Both our husbands were, always helping and trying to help us and to gauge how to do it.
Yes.
Actually, our kids were involved in everything because we were always discussing it as families.
Yeah.
So I think that was really important. And we've actually self-financed at the moment.
Okay.
Which is quite difficult.
I'm sure.
Especially in these times.
I'm sure.
Shannon, we really, really believe in the product. We believe that it's going to be successful. We believe that all the time, effort, and money we're putting into it will definitely give us the rewards that we would want from it.
Fantastic. Well, I believe that. And it comes across, and it really is worth it. Any sacrifices that you might have to make on other things, if you're doing something that you really believe in. So I think, I can't wait for the series to sort of unfold as we kind of go along with you as you experience this. So I think I've got a few more questions, and then we'll sort of wrap up this first episode where we're sort of introducing you, introducing the product, introducing how you started. I want to hear a little bit about your client base. Do you have a pipeline of clients already, and what's your distribution thought? How do you plan to distribute?
So the client base, to be fair, is for teenagers, men, women, it's genderless. I know it's good for teenagers because obviously I've experimented on my great son.
Which is wonderful. I mean, nothing like a testimonial, right? From a teen.
Yeah.
You cannot get them to lie about a product, right? They're going to tell you what they think. So that's fantastic. Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're brutally honest.
They
which
are.
Is,
They are, sure.
Hard to take sometimes. And obviously, men, women, like I like the hand creams that we've got, the luxurious hand cream, we've got the hair serums, the masks and the cleansers. They're all can be used by anyone.
Okay.
I think it's not a limit as to who can use it.
Okay.
And I forgot what your second question was. Oh, the distribution will be. We are now creating a website.
Okay.
Which is going to be launched soon. We've got a meeting tomorrow with them, and we're on LinkedIn, on Instagram. It's Body by Organic on Instagram. It's on Facebook. We're posting posts out sort of nearly every 2-3 days, showing the products, the bottles, so that people are aware. So that's going to be the main channel. I mean, obviously, we'd love to do, shows once we can through COVID finishes. We'd love to sell in any channel that will take us, actually.
Yeah. Well, if you need an influencer on your books, and you ever want to sponsor the teen course that I do with your product, that could be actually quite an interesting little partnership. Yeah. So the thought is social media, word of mouth. What about any actual physical stores or things like that to get them into?
At the moment, we will approach the beauty industry.
Okay.
Once we have a fully formed product.
Okay.
And show them, and hopefully they'll like it and want to go for it.
Yeah.
But we're not thinking of having our own shop as such.
Sure. And that makes a lot of sense. And that is something that will be really interesting for us to bring up in one of the next episodes, where you talk a little bit about, are you at that point yet to use a retail shop as a distribution outlet? And that will be interesting. What about marketing and branding? Have you invested money in that, or are you doing that all yourselves?
So with the branding, we actually made our own logo.
Okay.
So we formulated ourselves, and we went through hell and back for that one because we had so many ideas.
It's not easy. It is not easy.
True.
It is a real, and that's why I bring it up, because I think a lot of people can dismiss that. I myself have just been going through about 5 weeks of a rebrand. And that's just stage one. There's sort of 3 stages. And even a renaming of this podcast, which is going to come out in the new year. Shot collar will still be an aspect of it, but I needed help because I knew I was flapping around in a a mission sense and a vision, and it needed clarity, and I needed um, the whole marketing branding to be a thread throughout. And I'll tell you what, I did not, still don't have the skills for that. So it is a monster of a undertaking for a small business.
Completely correct. And also with marketing, obviously at the moment we are trying to do most of the social media ourselves.
Yeah,
But
which is
we
also
have,
challenging.
oh God, yeah. But we are, I think once we have a bit more finance, then we'll probably go through the channels of actually getting someone to help us with our marketing.
Fantastic.
So I think it's a sort of a long plan rather than just short term.
Of course. And you have to, and this is the thing about being a startup, right? You cannot fund all of it at once. I mean, you have got to have a rollout plan.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this podcast for a year now, a little over a year. And I started around sort of September saying, look, I need some help. And then this group, Joanne and Justine from Brand Space, which I'd be happy to introduce you guys at whatever point, but they said it's actually quite good that you had some time behind you already. We can
Yes.
be more effective with you having learned and having found some areas that are a niche to you, and then we can take that and really build on it. So there is something to be said about just starting, and then as you come to the point where you feel like it's not working for you, or you need to grow or take a different direction.
I think that's when we'll have to ask for a lot of help. Yeah.
Exactly. So you cannot do it all. You've only got so much budget, and you're obviously going to prioritize just getting the product out the door. I think the teenage aspect of it is fantastic, and it's necessary, and it's wow, I mean, being a teenager already sucks most of the time. It really does.
Yeah.
And the self-confidence, and then you add problem skin on top of that. I also had problem skin as a teen. I didn't have necessarily acne, but I had constant breakouts, constant.
Yeah.
And then I would just put so much more makeup on top of my skin. And and boys don't have that luxury, do they? I mean,
No.
women, we can, do some little bit of magic occasionally, but boys don't. I mean, not that you can't, boys. Boys, you can go put the makeup on. I'm not judging that, but I'm just saying in general, boys are not covering their faces up with makeup so
Yeah.
often, right?
But
So,
also, like, I think the younger generation, like my daughter's only 11, and she's also started talking about, what should I put on my face?
yeah,
And personally, I'd rather she uses an organic, natural product at such a young age because their skin is so delicate.
yeah,
So even if she's going to use something softer on it,
yeah,
more natural rather than just going for the whole chemical aspect.
yeah.
Because you might need that late, at some point. But at the moment, definitely.
And just as a little, just things are popping to my head, just because I believe in educating people on whatever topic, whatever product you're selling, whatever service you're selling. And quite ironically, I spent about 20 minutes last night. Maybe it was just in the back of my head. Maybe it was a happy accident. I watched a 20-minute tutorial by Jada Pinkett Smith, the actress, the American actress, and she did an entire 20-minute segment on her rejuvenation skincare process. And it wasn't really exactly about product, but more about her process. And she does steam. She does like a steam 3 times in this process, 3 or 4 times, and literally steam with hot water, a bowl, and a towel over her head. So she didn't have some fancy machine. And then she did have some products that were a bit pricey, some products that weren't. But it might be interesting for you guys to do sort of a video tutorial for a teen, and do this is a good skincare routine for you. And of course, your product would be part of that, but it may not be everything. And then talk a little bit about the chemistry, because I used to wash my face just thinking the more I washed it, the less breakouts I would have. But you have all these different types of zones on your skin, right? And if you over dry it, the body will produce more oil. So these are things that probably teens and a lot of parents just don't know. So maybe there's an opportunity to educate the consumer on these things as well.
Completely. And the cleanser we have has got such amazing ingredients in that it would really suit that kind of skin type, and
Yeah.
wouldn't dry it out either, and take away the excess oil that they need on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, just from a perspective of educating people to understand their skin would, I think, be fantastic and interesting. A little TikTok video or something. I don't know it. I'm sure your children know how to do that. I struggle with the TikTok. I really
Yeah, I completely.
Anyway, we're going to get there. We're going to get there in the end. Well, I mean, this has been really great. I think we covered most of the key aspects that we wanted to in this series. The second series will come back and you guys will be closer to actual launch. By the way, when is the goal for launch? The go live?
We're aiming to do it for Valentine's.
Okay.
So February, mid-Feb.
Okay.
We're just at the sort of a bit of a stuck process on how long the actual craft paper packaging, the outer packaging, will take, because that's taking a lot longer than we'd have anticipated.
Okay.
So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Okay. So I think it might make sense for us to do another episode right before launch, huh? And just hear where you're at. So maybe real early February or something like that. We can decide that later offline, but just to give the listeners some idea of when we might get the next check-in, maybe very early February would be a good point where either you're like, or you're like, yay, we're gonna make it.
Pray.
Yeah, we're gonna pray. And and then I would love to do a little weave in some sort of testimonials from people who've tried it, from teens. I think that would be really interesting as well. So well, fantastic. Good. Ladies, I think it was a brilliant start.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
You're very welcome. I look forward to the next discussion, and go get them, girls, huh?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.